Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Stats and Stacks podcast, where we make the picks to make sure you get paid. I'm your host, Nadiv Taylor, and we're here to talk about Fight Night, UFC Fight Night, Gastelum versus Whittaker. I'm ready, baby, and I'm well, it's ready to get paid. So the very first start, let's not waste a second of your time. Very first fight of the night, we have Tony Gravely going up against Anthony Burchuk. First, we'll start with Tony Gravely here. When you look at the fight odds themselves, we're looking at, we have Mr. Gravely here. He's a minus 325 favorite. Come back on Anthony Burchuk, we have a plus 265. And honestly, there's a very damn good reason for that. We have Tony Gravely here, predominantly a wrestler, grappler. His striking is decent. You look at his last fight, it was against Geraldo de Freitas. It says split decision. Guarantee you that was not a split, no split whatsoever. He dominated the first two rounds. He slowed down on a little in the third. He did the same in the third round against Brett Johns here, where you see he got submitted in the third halfway through. It seems to be a reoccurring theme, but he's generally up so much it doesn't matter. And Brett Johns is very good. He's going to be a contender at Bellator. Honestly, you look at the rest of his opponents here. As far as UFC caliber, we have a win over Draco Rodriguez, who's been in the UFC. Patchy Mix, he lost via guillotine early, but Patchy is very good. Western New York, shout out. Otherwise, Manny Bermudez is not bad. It's not that he's fought all killers, but Merab Delashvili, he's fought some decent people. Pat Sabini, it's not as if he fought a whole bunch of cans. He's paid his dues, and the dude's really good. He's 20-6 for a reason. He is a great grappler. And again, he's going up against another grappler in Anthony Burchuk here. I believe he used to wrestle for Arizona State. He's a little elder. This is actually a second run in the UFC. I generally have problems with people that fight in Combate America. I generally want to fade every single one of them, especially looking at his last few fights here, getting guillotined real early in a grappling bout. I mean, I don't really want to count that, but he does have a few submission losses on here. Even his last UFC fight against Gustavo Lopez. I know they used to be teammates, but still, it's not the greatest look there. I'm just going through all of his fights here. I mean, Thomas Almeida, Joe Soto, in his first run in the UFC. He's decent on the feet. He just has a tendency to get finished a lot, honestly, when you look at a lot of his losses. And he's just older. I know it says he's about, 34? But I mean, there's difference between actual years and fight years. Then you look at, the way you look at the fight, it's just the minus 325 for Gravely is a little high for my liking. And Burchuk, if he doesn't have the wrestling advantage, I don't really see where he wins the fight. So me personally, I'm probably leaning more towards the odds with the over-under here. Most likely, the under 2.5 is plus 110, over is actually, the under is minus 150. The over 2.5 is plus 120. Odds makers think that Gravely's going to come out there and dominate Burchuk. I'm not so sure about that. The pick will be Tony, and I definitely think he'll win. How he does it is where it's questionable. I'll go ahead and just take the over, get the plus money if I'm going to do it, because I think betting minus 300 is a little too much for Tony. Then the next fight of the night here, I believe we have Austin Hubbard against Dakota Bush. When you go back over, you look at the odds for this fight. Let's pull this up for you. We have Dakota Bush plus 155, Austin Hubbard at minus 175. I agree with that, honestly. You go back and you look at Austin Hubbard's UFC career. He had some losses in here. Joe Selecki, Marco Madsen, Davi Ramos. It's just when you look at those people compared to Dakota Bush, first and foremost, Marco Matson's probably the best wrestler in this division. Joe Selecki's a very, very good wrestler, grappler. Even his wins, Max Rohoff, I mean, where Max quit halfway through. He was at NCAA. He wrestled D1 at NC State, I believe. Just someone along the way does not like Austin Hubbard because he is predominantly a striker, and they just keep feeding him these wrestler grapplers. And I know he has some losses on here, but they're to the best, some of the best wrestlers in the division, and he just wears on you, man. He kind of reminds me of like a Chuck Liddell, where he strikes real heavy, real good stand up. His nickname is Thud. That should say it all. But in regards to his wrestling, you can get him down, but he's going to pop right back up. And it's very, very tiresome for both him and his opponents. But he is a really, really good gas tank. When it comes to Dakota Bush, it's the same scenario. They gave him another wrestler. I mean, initially they gave him a Nathan Levy. Levy's a lot better than Dakota Bush, and he's also a wrestler. So again, they just keep feeding Austin wrestlers. But Dakota, he doesn't have a lot of great wins on the regional scene. Also, I went back and did some fight tape on everyone, and he seems a little odd when it comes to fighting other wrestlers. He's not really that big of like a finisher. I know you're going to look at his record and you're going to see all these rear naked chokes and head kicks. These are against people with like terrible, terrible records. They're not that good. When it comes to Austin Hubbard, the other thing is he's taking this fight on like a week and a half notice. So if his game plan, which what he would have to do is to come out and strike, come out and wrestle with Austin Hubbard, he's going to grow tired doing that. And I want to say Austin is definitely the pick. And then in regards to betting, I would just take Austin straight up, to be honest with you. It's not a bad price tag. I wouldn't even worry about an over, under, anything like that, because I don't think Dakota's that durable. And his nickname is Harry. I don't want to see Dakota Harry Bush in the UFC for long. So the sooner he loses, the better. So we don't have to worry about that. Next fight of the night, we have Zara Prime Dos Santos, so they cut off the rest of her last name here, against Josie Nunez. So this is just the bottom of the barrel here. We'll start with Zara. I mean, she's not that bad, honestly. I mean, she's not good by any means, but when you look at her, you look at her as one of the worst 145-pound women fighters in the roster. Well, there's only 5 of them, and she fought the number 2 and the number 3 145-pounder. So, I mean, if you're 5 out of 5, what can you say? She's dropping down to 135 here, where she belongs and where she fought before. I think she was just trying to take a shortcut. There's only a few 145-pounders, so why not try to cut to the front of the line? All it takes is one win at that weight class to get a title fight, so why would you not try it? And the only concerning about her is she is definitely a striker only. Her grappling is non-existent, and her wrestling is not that good. Getting tapped out by Megan Anderson is very, very concerning. And then obviously the ground and pound against Felicia Spencer. So basically, if you get a hold of this girl and you get her down, that's all she wrote. She can't get up. The good news for her is that Nunez is also a striker. The problem is with Nunez, she's been fighting since 2013. But again, you look at her record, she only has 8 pro fights. Her one loss was to Tyler Santos. That's not a bad loss. Believe me, Tyler Santos is underrated at 135. She's very, very good. I think she's fighting at 125 right now, actually. But still, regardless, she's very, very good. But Nunez is not. First and foremost, she's 5'2", and she's fighting at 135. She's in the wrong weight class. You'll see later on in the card, you have 115-pounders that are 5'2". Secondly, she started in 2013 with only 8 fights, so she's taking years off at a time. I mean, you're seeing her fight a few times in 2019, 3 times in 2019, which is nice. Otherwise, you had 1 fight in 2018. You had a 3-year gap between that and her other fight in 2015, a 2-year gap here in 2013, 2015. She fights and then she takes 2 years off. It's kind of weird. And looking at the tape, she's also just a striker. It's just, Zara's going to have about a 5 to 6 inch reach advantage. And when I see these two on the scales and the face off, it's going to look a little funky with her being literally 5'8", and Nunez being 5'2", she's going to tower over her, and I think she's going to use that reach. And for whatever reason, Zara is the dog. She's plus 100. So I would definitely pick her to win the fight, and I want to place a bet on it and get plus money, but it's a little shaky. You don't really have anything to go off of on Nunez or Zara. I would just stay away. But if you just can't help it and want to bet on every fight, it's dog or pass. You got to take Zara at that point. Then the next fight, you have Gerald Meerschaert versus Bartosz Fabinski. We'll start with Gerald. Gerald his striking is decent. It's okay. He used to be known as having like a cast iron chin. You just could not knock this dude out. However, you look at his last two fights: knockout in 17 seconds, knockout in 1 minute and 14 seconds. It's age, man. You look at his record, he's 31 and 14. He has a lot of pro fights, almost 50 pro fights, and it's wearing down on him. It says he's 33, but in fight years, he's about 50, and it's really starting to wear on him. I mean, you look at him, he does have the most submission wins in middleweight history, which is nice. But at the same time, he's a natural welterweight, to be 100% honest with you. Trevin Giles is a decent win, but he gasses out in the third round, and he just took advantage of it. Duran wins, not that great of a win, but again, he was losing, and then Duran gassed out in the third round. He took advantage of it. It's just a reoccurring theme here. He wears on you, and then after a while, he taps you out. A lot of that is when he's on top, though. When you look at rear naked choke, you look at the guillotine is nice for Trevin Giles, but then you look at rear naked choke, a body kick finish, arm bar, anaconda, arm triangle. All this stuff is when he's on top. So when you look at who he's fighting right now, you're looking at Bartosz, who might be the worst striker in the UFC middleweight division, possibly UFC in general, but he is a damn good wrestler. He's very, very good at wrestling. He's like a wet blanket. He'll just lay and prey on you. It's not the most exciting fight, but he gets the job done. Record showing. I mean, wins over Darren Stewart's pretty nice. Honestly, that might be his best win on his resume here. The only concerning thing I have is the Andre Muniz fight. I don't think the game plan was with him being a terrible striker, I don't know what his game plan is going to be. I don't think it was to go down with someone that's a third-degree black belt, but he didn't really want to strike either. It was kind of a lose-lose. He did a good job. I vividly remember that fight because I had money on Bartosz. He did a great job with the defending the guillotine. It looked pretty tight, and he got out of it. But Muniz is a wizard on the ground, caught him with an arm bar. Darren Stewart, again, great win, just ground and pound and just control him. He doesn't even throw a lot of strikes, to be 100% honest with you. But once he gets on top of you, you don't get back up. The problem is you look at his losses, and I've mentioned the guillotine he got caught in, he got out, but then he got arm barred. Then you look at another loss, and he got guillotine choked. It's just he keeps getting submitted. He has 4 career losses, and 3 are by submission. He's going against Gerald, who has the most submission wins in middleweight history. So although most of Gerald's wins are him on top getting the submission, I just don't like that he has a few guillotine wins, and Bartosz is one to known stick his head in there and get caught. So overall pick, I'm more likely going to go with a wrestler. I'll go Bartosz. But if I'm betting this fight, I'm not putting favorite money on Bartosz. I'm just going to do dog or pass again. And I'm going to be looking at the Gerald Meerschaert end of everything. Next fight is what I'm very, very interested in. We have Lupita Godinez and Jessica Panay. Lupita, I believe her nickname is Loopy. She's good, man. She's very, very underrated. She's newer. And when I see her, all I see is Macy Barber. She's a short little tank, and that never moves backward, always goes forward. Very, very good striker. She hits hard for a 115er. She hits really hard. In regards to her wrestling chops, I've seen her take people down. The real aggressive takedowns. You can tell that's not her forte, but she can take you down if she needs to. But again, her striking is very good. That forward pressure wears on you, and her cardio checks out. She had a 5-round fight in her last fight. She went all 5 rounds. She did gas out a little in the 4th and 5th, but this is a 5th-round fight. So, sorry, this is a 3-round fight. So she has good cardio for 3 rounds. Then on the flip side, you see her opponent, Jessica Panay. I'm glad we see her because we haven't seen her in years. I know she's been battling a suspension. And right now, looking at it, I mean, when you look at her resume in the UFC, granted, it's a little outdated. I mean, her last fight was all the way back in 2017. So she has not fought in 4 years because of the USADA suspension and everything like that. Her loss is Danielle Taylor. She probably should have won that, in all honesty. But the Jessica Andrade, you can't fault her for losing that. Joanna Jędrzejczyk definitely can't fault her for losing that. Carla Esparza can't fault her for using that. So Michelle Waterson, you look at her losses, honestly, you have someone I actually don't know all the way down here, but that was only her 7th fight. That was all the way back in 2010. So fight she lost to Michelle Waterson, who's a top 5 girl. Carla Esparza, former champ. Joanna, probably the GOAT of the division. Jessica Andrade, former champ. And Danielle Taylor, probably should have won that one. But these are decent. If you're going to lose, you lose to former champs title challengers. So I would say with her being a plus 240 dog, and Loopy herself is a minus 275, the odds are a little off, in my opinion, just because it's Loopy's first fight in the UFC. However, that 4-year layoff petrifies me. So what I'm going to do is, because it's a 115-pound fight, they're always going to give you really, really outrageous, just egregious overs and some really high unders, try to bait you into taking it. Well, they got me because I already placed a bet on the under at plus 260. The way I see it, Loopy could get caught on the ground. Panay is a wizard on the ground, but she can't wrestle to save a lick. So if it somehow ends up on the ground with Jessica on top, she will most likely submit with Loopy. If it stays standing, Loopy will most likely knock out Panay. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take the under and put the plus 260 on there and see what we can do. I don't care which side wins, which happens. Either way, I'll be happy as long as it finishes inside 2.5. Then the next fight here, we have the people's main event. Alexander Romanov versus Juan Espinito. First, let's start with Alexander Romanov, who is my favorite heavyweight in the UFC. He's a young up-and-comer. They call him King Kong. And you always talk about wrestlers, grapplers, strikers. Man, this guy's background is a sumo wrestler. Dude, I love this guy. He's full of energy. Great cardio for someone that walks around at he weighs in at like 260. Yeah, he runs out and he throws like leaping crane kicks and a deceptively quick head kick. A man this big should not throw a head kick that fast. It looks like it's coming from a featherweight. It is quick. His stand-up is trash. Don't get me wrong. He just throws flashy stuff out there just to kind of sucker you in, and then he takes you down. But he doesn't just, get a nice little double or drag you down to the mat. He throws you with authority. He's lateral dropping. He's just picking you. He's getting behind you and suplexing other 260-pound men. Like, this dude is exciting. And when he gets on top of you, it is game over. He does these big, they call him King Kong for a reason. He does these big hammer fists, and they're real quick, rains down. I mean, he has a lot of different ways to win. Like his last fight, he won by a submission. Fight before that, he won by submission. Like I said, he throws big slams. His fight before the UFC, he won by slam. He won by punches. He's won by chokes. Like, he does it all, and he is a finisher. I mean, he's never gone to a decision. And a lot of these are in round 3, which I love, which is just showing he has cardio. He does slow down. Don't get me wrong. He's not invincible. In the second and third round, he's a 260-pound man. He does slow down. However, he does not gas out. There's a difference. And when you look at other heavyweights, they're gassing out while he's just slowing down. But the problem is his opponent is a former tough winner in Juan Espinito. Juan is also a great wrestler, probably one of the best wrestlers in the division. So you have a battle of two wrestlers, which usually turns into a stand-up ordeal. Neither one of them are good on the ground or good on the feet. So it's really a wash. So I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. Whoever gets taken down most likely is going to lose the fight. However, in doing tape study, I did see Alexander Romanov get taken down before and get back up to his feet. I've also seen him do a reversal on the ground. I know Juan is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to go on top of his wrestling. However, he is one of these also offensive-minded grapplers where all of his wins are in the first round. Granted, outside of in the Ultimate Fighter, he went 2 rounds and won a decision there. But again, that's only because it was the Ultimate Fighter, and they don't go 3 rounds unless it's needed. But outside of that, all of his wins are in the first round, and he's 40 years old, too old, red flag. I know heavyweight, you can go a little older, but 40 is getting up there, especially going against someone 10 years younger than you that does the exact same thing. At this point, I think Juan is decent, but I think he wasted too much of his career. 10-1 being 40 years old, he just waited too long. So the pick is going to be Alexander Romanov. And the bet at Romanov is at -50, while Espinizo is +120. And a lot of people are doing dog or pass. But again, I have a personal bias in regards to Alexander. He is literally my favorite heavyweight. So I'm going to keep rolling with him. He hasn't let me down yet. He's undefeated. He's 13-0, and he's 30 compared to Espinizo, who's 10-1 and is 40 years old. So give me the young prospect, the 30-year-old, to at least cover the -150. Not too shabby. I'll take it. And then the next fight on the card, we have a Tracy Cortez versus Justine Kish. This fight is going to be a snooze fest, mainly because Tracy Cortez should dominate the grappling exchanges. She can't strike. She's a work in progress. She's real young. She's 27. I know she's been fighting like her whole life, but her stand-up needs a lot of work, and she's working on it. You see the improvements, but I don't think Justine Kish is the one you try those improvements with. Her last few fights, I know it said she's 8-1. I watched all of them. Most of them I could find. Erin Blanchfield, I actually thought she lost that split decision, but Erin's also a very, very good wrestler. So that was one where it was wrestler versus wrestler, and Tracy got the nod. I can see either way. Agapova is a good win. Vanessa Mello is a decent win. That was a striker. And that's the thing. When it comes to comparisons, I think for the Vanessa Mello fight, as well as Justine Kish, they're basically fight the same way. And Tracy was able to dominate that fight. And that was at 35. She's coming down to 25, where she's just going to be even more of a dominant wrestler. The only problem I have are the odds. I believe she's a -265 favorite. That's a little steep, but it's because of that wrestling pedigree. On the flip side, you have Justine Kish, who's kind of like a Muay Thai fighter. And my major concern, I think she's underrated. I think she's pretty decent. But when I did tape study, watching that Felice Herrig loss frightened me, because Felice took her down with ease, and Tracy's a better wrestler than Felice is. As well as her last fight, getting choked out by Mazzo. It isn't the best look. She was real competitive for the first few rounds, but she did get caught with a head kick and then got choked out. But even that's not going to happen with Tracy. It's this Felice one that really, really scares me, because she got taken down easily at will. So at this point, the pick is gonna be Tracy Cortez. You can try to make it a little better by taking her by decision, but that's about the only way I would take it. I know that she has it's like 20-1 for her to win by submission. I don't really see that happening. You can take a stab at it for crazy odds if you want, but the safest bet is just her by decision, to be honest with you. And it's not going to be the greatest. So it'll be okay, like -200 or so. Then the next fight, you have Luis Pena going up against Alex Munoz. I'll tell you right now, I love Luis Pena. Violent Bob Ross. I love the look. I love the fighting style. However, he's not that good. I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of it is the fact that he was on Tough. I loved him on that season. Then he got hurt, and you want to root for the guy. But his last loss to Kama Worthy really concerned me about the fight IQ. Kama Worthy is easy to take down, and he's a fish out of water off his back. If I was Luis, I would just take him down right away and not worry about anything. And he didn't. He got outstruck the first round, and then the second round he decided, oh, I'm going to try to take him down, and he did, and he won the round. But then the third round, he just kind of stuck his head in there and got guillotined. Like, it's just not the greatest fight IQ. The UFC seems to like him too. They're giving him really, really winnable fights against Richie. I mean, since he got in here, he fought Richie, who's not good. He fought Mike Trezano, the winner of his season, who they thought Luis was supposed to win, and Mike ended up winning. Steven Peterson, Matt Weinman, all these are, he was like minus 400 favorites in all of these because he should kill these 40-year-old men and people that aren't in the UFC anymore. Matt Frivola, I don't think they understood how good Matt was. The split decision looks, I think Matt's good at least. Not everyone will have that same opinion, but split decision loss regardless isn't the greatest. Steve Garcia, I don't think is with the promotion any longer. And then of course we already went over Kama Worthy. I love Luis Pena. I just don't think he's UFC caliber right now. He is young. He's only 27. He did make the switch from AKA to ATT. I like that he's switching camps to try to do something to fix it. I'm just not too certain with him being a minus 150 favorite if I could take him over Alex Munoz. And this is why. I don't think Alex Munoz is good at all either. And I know he trains out of Team Alpha Male, and I always want to fade Team Alpha Male. They are on a downhill swing. They are sinking quickly. But he is a well-decorated wrestler, wrestled D1. And in his fights, he's not a striker. He knows he's not a striker. He comes out and he wrestles. I mean, he took the Nazareth fight on short notice. He wrestled. He even got him down in the first round, but Nazareth's decent. He got back up, and then he just pieced him up. I think all three judges had a 30-27. But then you look at like his Contender Series fight against Nick Newell and all of these regional wins. He's taking you down, and he's finishing you. He knows he can't strike. He knows he's a wrestler. And at this point, Luis Pena, who is just absolutely terrible takedown defense, if you're giving me Alex Munoz at dog money, we have him here at plus 125. If you're giving me striker versus wrestler, I will always take a wrestler. It's just an easier path. Even though I don't think Alex Munoz is any good and he's at a terrible camp, I think Luis Pena is a great personality, but not a great UFC fighter. So the pick will be Munoz, and I'd actually just bet him straight up since he's a plus 125 dog. Might as well just take the dog money. The next fight is very, very interesting. We have Abdul Razak Alissan and Jacob Malkoun. Abdul is one-dimensional, man. He comes out, he has serious power. The only thing is he was at welterweight his whole career, and this is his first fight at middleweight. I know he did miss the welterweight limit his last two fights, and actually ended up losing both fights against people. I mean, the chaos loss was scary. It was only 30 seconds, and I guess he was knocked out for like 10 minutes. He just was not moving. Really, really, really frightening scene there. And then you have Munir Laziz, who's not good at all, but was just able to survive the first round. And if you get out of the first round with him, you can beat him. He is a powerhouse. Abdul is some of the heaviest hands at welterweight. However, again, this fight is going to be his first fight at middleweight. The only good thing for Abdul is the fact that he's fighting Jacob Malkoun. And Jacob Malkoun is only in the UFC because of Robert Whittaker. That's just his main training partner. Jacob Malkoun is 4-1. He didn't have a loss, so they're like, let's give this kid a shot. And the last time he fought was when Robert fought Cannonier. So they always just put him on a card with Robert, because Robert's main eventing this card as well. They gave him a shot. They gave him Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes needed 18 seconds to starch this kid. Like, it doesn't take much. It looked like he was, even his tape study, he only has 4 fights. I was able to find 2. He has 5 fights. I was able to watch 3 of them. every time even these regional scene kids hit him, he flinched a little bit. He does not like to get hit, and that is not a good thing against Abdul Razak Alisson. So, I mean, Abdul, you can't trust because if it goes out the first round, he's never won. However, Jacob Malkoun is someone that doesn't like to get hit going against a power puncher. So here's the craziness. This is what I would do because the odds are not something you want to mess with. You have Abdul Sakra-Hassan is minus 300. That is way too much. Do not bet that. But at the same time, Jacob at plus 250, he can't take a punch. Do not bet that. So what you can do is you can either bet Abdul by KO, and I would do first round KO props if you can to make that a little easier. It still may not be plus money, even though you're picking the type and the round. It's very close. I can't remember offhand. Or this is the craziness. This is the things you get at Stats and Stacks. If you're gonna go dog, don't just pick him straight up. Jacob is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So if some crazy way this thing hits the ground and Jacob finds a way on top, Jacob by submission is 20-1. So if you're going to bet this fight, you do a dual first round knockout, or you get real loose, you get real wild, and you do 20-1 odd of Jacob by submission, just because it's probably his only path to victory, in all honesty. It's very unlikely, but it pays well. And then we have a legend in Andrei Arlovski going against Chase Sherman. Won't spend too much time on this fight. Andre stepping in on short notice. However, it is heavyweight, so all you have to do is stay ready. He is 30-20, so he has literally had 50 career professional MMA bouts. He's old, man. He's an ageless wonder. He's 42, and he's still getting the job done. I mean, the Tom Aspinall fought, he was able to withstand the first round of Tom, and then Tom came in hot in the second round and finished him kind of quickly with a power double from hell, right to a rear naked. That was something special from Tom. But a win against Tanner Boser, I thought Tanner won, but the fact that it was that close, impressive. The win against Philippe Lins, they gave him another young prospect, and he just keeps sitting them down. Rosenstruck, they gave him a young prospect, and Rosenstruck took him out kind of early. So you're Augusta Sakai. You're just seeing he's always the doormat. Taito Ivasa. If there is a young prospect in the division, they're going to give him Arlovski as a test. They're just a litmus test. To be a UFC heavyweight, you have to pass the Andrei Arlovski litmus test. And I mean, right now, the difference is he's stepping in on short notice. So he's actually not fighting a young prospect. He's actually fighting someone that the UFC would probably get rid of if they could right now with Chase Sherman. He's not good. He's very, very bad, in my opinion. I don't know what he's good at. The best thing he has is his leg kicks. A former bare knuckle boxer. He has some pretty heavy leg kicks and some decent stand up, I guess. But in all honesty, you look at his last win. I mean, Ike Villanueva is a 185 pounder that was moonlighting at heavyweight. And he was on the juice. USADA popped him for roids. So if you have to take roids to beat a 185 pounder, you're a little suspect, in my opinion. Just looking even at his UFC run, I mean, Justin Willis, Shamil, Augusta, it's not like these guys are terrible, but they're not good, and he's getting manhandled in these. So in all honesty, I just don't know what he's good at. He's the dog. He's plus 120. Arlovski minus. I just don't trust Arlovski either on short notice. He is what, minus 125. Oof. The pick would be Arlovski. Screw it. I'll just if you're gonna bet it, bet Arlovski. Just straight up. Don't get cute with it. If you want to get plus money, you can do Arlovski by decision because he's most likely not going to finish Chase. That's if you really want to get plus money. Otherwise, minus 125, I'd just bet him straight up. And honestly, it's a pass for me regardless. If you don't have to bet it, I'd stay away. Then we have the co-main event of the evening. We have Jakar Close, Jeremy Stephens. Jakar Close is a little bit of a wild card for me. He's 11-2. He's predominantly just a wrestler who's going to lay on you and get some decision wins. I mean, you look at his wins: decision, 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 decision. Oh, KO, KO, decision, KO, decision. Like that's what he does. He's a wrestler. He knows he's a wrestler, and generally, I'm okay with that. The concerning thing is the fact that he's in Arizona. He had to leave the lab. He left MMA lab. He went over to Fight Ready. He had to leave Fight Ready. If you're getting kicked out of all these camps, obviously there's one common denominator, and it's you. You might be the problem. I heard an interview recently, and he said that one, he plans on moving down to featherweight, which is huge considering he's fighting Jeremy Stevens, who generally fights at featherweight. So they're going to be about the same size. He's not going to be that much bigger. And secondly, he said that these other camps, it's not that he hated them, it's just they asked him to do too much. He wants to have like one set game plan. So that's a little concerning to me, that he can't handle a whole bunch of stuff. That screams poor fight IQ. However, if that's his strategy, I look at his last fight with Beneil Dariush. And Beneil's a great grappler. He's a good wrestler. So if you're going to beat Beneil, you're going to stand with him. I think Beneil's really, really good standing up as well, honestly. But if you're going to pick your poison, I would stand with him. And he tried to stand the whole time. So I think that was the game plan going in. If you're looking at his opponent in Jeremy Stevens is a power puncher. He can do nothing but strike. He's not going to tap you out. He's not going to wrestle. So in my opinion, Jakar would actually just go back to the grappling realm. And if he's only one track minded and he wants to do that, this is a good guy to do it against. I mean, Jeremy has a record for the most losses in UFC history. And let me show you why. It's not because he's just the worst fighter in the world. It's because he's been fighting in the UFC since 2007. His very, very first fight was actually, let's see, against Dean Thomas. Dean Thomas is a coach with like gray hair right now. There's 2007. I mean, I don't even think I was in high school and Jeremy Stevens was fighting in the UFC. Like, he's still fighting. And that was at lightweight. He was at lightweight for a while with great wins. I mean, he knocked out a former champ in RDA with that uppercut from hell. That was that thing. If you've never seen that thing, that was wicked. Then he took that power down to featherweight, and everyone thought that was the proper move. And honestly, looking at his record, it was. Because I'm looking at it, he has a win, he has a knockout win, he has a win. He lost to Cub Swanson, who's nasty. He lost to Charles Oliveira, who's nasty. He lost to Max Holloway, the best featherweight ever. He lost to Frankie Edgar, former champion. He lost to Moicano, nasty. He lost to Jose Aldo, former champion. Zabit, challenger about to be. Yair, challenger about to be. Calvin Cater, challenger. Like, he's not losing to bad. He's losing to literally the top 5 in the division. Outside of Aldo, who's now at 35, but he's literally he's literally losing to the top 5 people. So, I mean, do I think he needs to go back up to lightweight? No, but I think he sees a 4-fight losing streak at featherweight and needed to do something to change. It's just, I don't know with this matchup if I can choose Stevens to win just because Jakar is a more dominant wrestler and because Stevens is the favorite. He has a minus 120 favorite. You have a plus 100 buyback on close. That's not the biggest dog of money. It's damn near a pick 'em. However, if I can get any form of plus money on a wrestler versus striker, I'm going to take it. So the pick is going to be close, and I'm just going to bet him straight up. Because it's dog money, if you want to sweeten the deal and get it by decision, I can almost guarantee you that's how he wins if he wins. I'm literally about 95% sure that's how he would get the win. So contingent on what that odds look like, you can do close by decision, but you can also just take him straight up. He's a dog anyway. And then the main event, we have the man himself, Bobby Knuckles against Kevin Gastelum. I love Robert Whittaker, man. I think he's so underrated. And honestly, he used to be underrated. Now people are starting to respect him. But in all honesty, if he fought Izzy again, I'm going to take Robert. Robert's so well-rounded. He's good on the ground. He's probably a top 3 boxer in the division, as well as everyone sleeps on his wrestling. His wrestling is good. I think he wrestled for like the Australian, or was offered to wrestle for the Australian wrestling team. He is good. And when you look at him, then the only thing you would think maybe has a problem with is his chin. He's been knocked out by Stephen Thompson. He got knocked out by Izzy his last fight, clearly. It's just a lot of those were at welterweight. His only loss at middleweight was to the champ. So, I mean, and when you go back and you watch that fight, that was a 50-50 round one. It was a very close round. Robert was actually winning the stand-up, and then he got dropped, so you have to give Izzy the round. Then you have another really, really close round in the second round. I actually have the advantage going to Robert, and then he gets dropped. They throw a punch and hit each other at the same time, but Robert folds and Izzy stands over and finishes the job. So if they fought again, I don't know what would happen, because those were there were only 2 rounds, but they were close rounds. And Robert is he's that good, man. I love Robert Whittaker, and I think he is the best, if not the second best, he is the best middleweight in the division, contingent on that rematch. And then you have Gastelum, who's a welterweight. I don't know. I still don't understand why he doesn't cut down to welterweight. He said it's too tough for him. However, I mean, it's just, he would be so good at welterweight. He's a great wrestler. He's so fast. He has really, really quick hands. He might have the quickest hands in the division. They're quick, man. And he hits kind of hard. It's not like he has a ton of knockouts. It's just his run. The Jack Hermanson fight, I love Jack, but it might have been a little fluky with the way that heel hook went down. The Darren Till fight, neither one of them threw. You can't call either one of them a winner. I don't consider Till a winner of that fight. I don't consider Gastelum one. They both were absolutely terrible. He gave Izzy a run for his money. That's the toughest fight Izzy ever had. I know it says unanimous decision. He did win it unanimously, but it was definitely a 3-2 scorecard. That was until that 5th round. I know he got dropped like 5 times in the 5th round, but it was a war, and it was 2-2. He was 1 round away from being the undisputed middleweight champion of the UFC. But before that, you have a split against Souza, who's like in his 40s. You have Bisping, knockout, also in his 40s, took it in short notice. He lost to Weidman, who's also old. He beat Tim Kennedy, who retired after this fight. Like, I don't know why he only fights people over the age of 40. But whatever his niche is, I guess. Even, I mean, he fought for the title, and we went over everything that happened. So he has a really, really weird middleweight career here. In regards to the odds, Gastelum is tempting, being a plus 220 dog. I could see a path for him to win. Again, Robert gets dropped a lot. He doesn't necessarily get finished, but he does get dropped quite a few. I know Darren Till dropped him. Yoel dropped him. Even like fights he's winning, he's still getting dropped. And Gastelum's quick. He could hop on it and just have the ref stop in. But that's the only way I can see him winning, by knockout. Otherwise, I see Bobby Knuckles just piecing him up, taking him down, whatever he really wants to do. Because Gastelum cannot wrestle Robert down. Gastelum's a great wrestler, don't get me wrong. But Bobby Knuckles' takedown defense is a very, very good, again, Australian wrestling team. Robert's wrestling is underrated. So the pick is going to be Robert. In regards to bets, I'll actually just bet the over 4.5. Robert's not really a big finisher. You just look at his last few fights. You look at those wars with Yoel Romero. You look at his win over Darren Till. You look at his win over Jared Cannonier. All of these are decisions. He's not really finishing anyone as of late, especially at middleweight. The last finish he had was of Souza in 2017. So he hasn't won by knockout or anything. He hasn't finished anyone in 4 years. So I would take either Robert straight up. Minus 260 isn't the worst, but it's not the best. I'd probably just take the over 4.5 and get a little better odds. I think it's like minus 150 or something. So that's the route I would go. So all in all, it's going to be a fabulous card. This is going to be a fabulous podcast, and I just can't wait to see all the results of everyone with this card. Otherwise, we're out of this one, and we'll be back for UFC 261. You have a great evening.